Interesting walking over here with Matt Conti, just saying, 2020 NFL Combine is crazy, considering I came in the league in '85, so 35 years, and just was telling Matt how exciting it is. How exciting it is to be working in this league. It just keeps getting better and better, more exciting. Game gets better, players get better, more fan involvement, more media. It's all for the betterment of the game. So privileged to be working in this league, and also a privilege to be more specifically working for the Colts. Great ownership. Absolutely love meeting with Mr. Irsay all the time. He's hyper competitive, wants championships, knows what it takes. And then, working with Chris is unbelievable. Amazing coaching staff, three best coordinators in the league, and then ultimately it's about the players, and that's what brings us to the Combine. It's interesting to me as I thought back, been here 2 years, Chris here 3 years, so as Chris started building this thing 3 years ago, you know how we do it. We build it from the inside out. We build it in the draft. We re-sign our own. We're very selective in free agency, and we're very excited about where we are right now. There's been 3 really good drafts. We're building a core of players, very distinct kind of player we want, talent and personality-wise, and feel like we're very excited to be back at this point again to make this team better, get new flux of talent, make it competitive, and let's go to work here for this coming season.
Did you go to the Combine in '85?
I went to a combine in '85. There was multiple combines. I went to Arizona State and did the vertical jump on the grass on a field, so a little different back then.
It sounds like your left tackle's coming back.
Yeah, that's good news, isn't it?
Any insight into why and how close he was to going the other way, and what kind of played out in terms of his thinking in that?
Well, I was just joking with Kevin and Joe that the pressure of, it's 16 games that our offensive line starting 5 started. I wouldn't want to be the guy to stop that streak saying that I was just going to retire. So I'm wondering if it'll be interesting when you guys get a chance to talk to him, how much pressure did he get from those other 4? But I think he had his best year of his career last year, and I'm very excited to have him back.
How did you find out that he's coming back? Did the neighbors file a noise complaint when that call came in?
Yeah, no, I think I heard Chris screaming and yelling from the office next door. Yeah, no, that was such good news for us. I mean, at that position, I don't take it for granted. Every week when we're protection game plan, you guys know I've said this before, as a offensive play caller and game planner, you got to think, I don't have to worry about Chip helping Anthony Costanzo. He can handle whoever it is over there one-on-one. I can't even begin to explain what a huge advantage that is schematically in the pass game, not to have to help protect him all the time. So good we have him back.
I don't know if you can answer this, but what percentage of the time do you help AC?
It's a low percentage of the time, and as we know, and then what you're afforded is boom. Now you got that back out, it puts more pressure on the defense. So he gets very little help. He tells me that all the time. He lets me know, but he'll be compensated accordingly.
Frank, with the uncertainty at quarterback, have you been closely watching Justin Herbert throughout the season?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
With the uncertainty at quarterback, have you closely been watching Justin Herbert throughout the season, or is this the week?
Yeah, not during the season. I mean, now, of course, I'm watching all their tape. Last several weeks, obviously I focus both sides of the ball, but mostly on offense. So I've been started with receivers, watch as many of those as I can, then get to the quarterbacks. Justin certainly has had a good career. His tape is exciting. He does a lot of good things.
Hey, Frank, you made your coaching caps on the offensive side of the ball. I know when we last saw you, you said you had improvement in passing game. Can you just kind of elaborate on what each you guys passing-wise?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because, we talk about, hey, we come to the Combine, we get more players to get more competitive. This was free agency. Mike Groh became available. Mike and I were on a team that went to the Super Bowl together. I was the offensive coordinator. Mike was the primary guy who was helping me. And Mike's one of the best receiver coaches in the NFL, period. And I saw that firsthand. I'm really excited that he's here. And it really worked out well because it fits Kevin, Kevin Petula's mix, because Kevin has been a lot of a quarterback coach, so he has a great relationship with Nick, and the game planning side has good college experience in the RPO world. So we move him into a pass game specialist kind of role. Gives us more man hours to game plan and be creative and stay ahead of defenses.
Frank, how did being around
I think it was a similar mentality. You got to build it inside out. You got to be good up front on both sides of the ball.
Frank, we asked this a million times in December, but you wanted to take some time after the season and watch the tape. What's your evaluation of the quarterback spot right now? And personally, how do you think that will play out in the next few months in terms of what you guys' approach will be?
Yeah, that's a dangerous question to ask. Not just at the quarterback position, because as coaches we're critical during the season. We're always critical of ourselves. We're critical of our players because you got to get better. You got to win, but then when you have a lot of time to, you don't have to get ready for. In the season, you got the next opponent you got to get ready for, so you can't hang on it too long. Well, now when we go back and watch all the tape of all the films, we're hypercritical of every player, of every coach, of every play. That was a bad play. I mean, I'm sitting in there with Nick, and I said that was a bad call I made, or I don't know why we had that play in the game plan, or what's that player doing there? Why did we mess that up? Why didn't we make that throw? How did we miss that block? It all gets evaluated, and not for the purpose of tearing down, but to get better. So I just had a conversation the other day with Jacoby, just check in, like to check in with the guys, checked in with Jacoby, and you talk about those things. I love the culture we've created in our building where guys want to get better. They know it's competitive. I think Jacoby did a lot of really good things in unusual circumstances, and so just looking forward to him continuing to get better.
How do you think he'll respond to the end of his season? Because I know he said he didn't like how it went.
I think he'll respond great. We all know what he stands for. He's a stand-up guy. He'll take responsibility. We all know that it's not all the when things go bad. We know it's very complex. But what I love about Jacoby is he takes ownership for his part.
Frank, a similar question. This is not from you guys, but there's always speculation on this side of the microphone about quarterbacks and that kind of thing. Jacoby, how does he process that, do you think? I don't know if you talked about it, but just from knowing him, I didn't think he
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. Yeah, no, great question. And we, when I talked to him the other day, we really didn't go there. I mean, every player in this league knows. There's very few players that have the luxury of saying, "I'm a lock, 24/7. I don't have to ever worry about job security." That's a luxury in this league that not very many people have. So we don't talk about that kind of stuff. It's the unwritten, it's the unspoken truth that we all know exists. And you're a man about it. You welcome the competition, and let's get better.
What specifically do you look for when you're looking at their tape?
Yeah, I look for 5 things. I look for toughness, mental and physical toughness. I look for accelerated vision. That's another fancy, that's my definition or my word for how fast do you think on your feet. I look for accuracy. You have to be really accurate in this league. The windows are small. You have to look for good feet. Any sport is played from the ground. Most sports are played from the ground up. So as a quarterback, that's really important how you play this game with your feet. And then the last thing is you look for the intangibles, the leadership. Are you the playmaker in the big moments?
Frank, because of all that.
Evolving as it has, you look for different qualities now because you've got more guys like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson like that.
Yeah, you have to be able to adapt. I mean, that's exciting. That's exciting to me. I don't look at myself, even though I've been in this league a long time, and I was personally, I was a classic drop back passer. I never even thought about doing some of the things these guys do today, but that's why we have the staff that we have to stay in front of it, be creative, keep looking at what fits, what doesn't fit. You can't do everything. You just can't be a copycat league, but there are certain things that fit our personnel that we got to stay in front of.
Because of the 5 things you talked about in the quarterback position and intangibles, is that maybe why there's more misses at the position, high-profile misses in the first round?
Yeah, I think the misses come from exactly what you're saying, Chap. I think they come from the intangibles, and I think they come from the processing. I think it's one of the tricks of the trade is I think how do you figure out? I mean, there's a lot of things you can test right here physically, but how do you test how fast a guy thinks, somebody's cognitive ability? And that's, to me, an exciting aspect. There's a lot of new things out there around that, but I think that's where the 2 biggest areas where the misses come from.
In a great locker room, Chris is talking about friction now. How do you get there with the guys currently?
Yeah, friction. Yeah, Chris made a big deal about that. I think that's competition. That's getting guys who have that competitive spirit, who status quo is not good enough, and we're going to hold each other accountable. We're going to fight hard to get better, and so don't get in the way. And if you get in the way, we're not going to walk by that. We're going to call that out. So I think that's what we're talking about.
Being a former Buffalo Bill, how have you seen Sean McDermott and his staff build towards success?
I'm very excited for Sean and the Bills. You know, obviously playing there for 10 years, I'm a huge Bills fan, even though they're in the AFC. But when it doesn't hurt the Colts, I root for the Bills. In particular, I think very highly of Sean McDermott. I think he's a class head coach. I think he's excellent X and O guy. I think he's a great leader. Very happy to see what he's doing there in Buffalo.
Frank, as a head coach, what's the most important aspect of this week for you? I think a lot of people obviously on Chris' shoulders, but for you, what's the most important?
Yeah, just to get a better feel. You know, I have there's a lot of guys I've looked at the tape, meet some of them personally. You guys know how it works. The interviews are short, so I don't overweight those. You get a little information from those. You get a feel. I mean, we're doing some interviews last night, for instance, and I have my notepad there. And so we have an 18-minute interview with the guy, and I might write down, I'd say of the interviews we did, I wrote down on average probably 5 or 6 bullet point things with the guy. Like his body language, like how quickly he responded to that question. He didn't get defensive, things like that, just things you take notice of. So that it reminds you when you go back and you're watching tape or you're talking to his coach or you're talking to somebody else, you add those all up.
In terms of measuring that mental processing, like you talked about, I know you can't tell us what tools you use, but are there tools that you are confident in?
I mean, I think there's more tools out there today. For me, the one way I think that most old school coaches do it, I like to try to be a blend in the old and new. I like using the new technology and things like that, which I wouldn't want to go into. But then some of it is just watching film with a guy, and you got to be able to ask the right questions. You got to be able to get the pace of the film session going so fast that he has to think quick on his feet. You have to plan those sessions out so that you can maximize and put his mind in a position that forces him to be challenged mentally. And I think if you do that for long enough, you can get some idea.
That's the kind of thing you have to do on a visit.
Exactly. That's why 18 minutes is not enough time. It's just not enough time. So when you really, dig down at other positions, it's important for every position. It's really important for quarterback. It's really important for offensive linemen, from the offensive side of the ball. It's important for all the other positions as well, but I think it's even more important in those two positions, and tight end as well.
With all the cap space you've got to work with, is it a reasonable expectation that the Colts will be more aggressive in free agency this year than you have been?
I mean, that would seem logical, but, Chris is really disciplined, and he's really patient, and I've really come to appreciate that. And we were just talking the other day, even in the last 2 years we've been together, we kind of recounted some scenarios over the last 2 years of moves that we were thinking about making, didn't make, could have spent big money, didn't. I'm not going to go into what these were. And it turns out we were right, not to chase it. I mean, there's 2 specific examples that I'm thinking of that guys that we thought, this might be the guy, this might be that selected guy. We go down the road a little bit, and then it just doesn't, something happens, it doesn't work out. And now 2 of those in 2 years we look back at, and both of them ended up playing out better for us.
We'll keep it among us. Who would they be?
Chris can share that with you if he wants to.
Without naming names, though, are there any on the other side where you didn't go after a guy that you wish you would have?
Great question. I block those out of my mind.
As well as names, by the way.
Yeah.
As a head coach, Frank, though, is that hard knowing, okay, I know Chris has said you guys want to build for the draft, be, smart free agent wise, but when you're the head coach and, you're basing off wins and losses, is that hard for you not to kind of try to nudge Chris and say, hey, maybe we should go after and spend a little more money on this guy?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're exactly right. As a head coach, you get measured by wins and losses. So from my perspective, it's like, hey, it doesn't matter. Just let's get through the next year. But that's where ownership comes into play. And every meeting with Mr. Irsay is don't deviate from the plan. We build from the draft. We build inside out. We're very selective and free. He's willing to spend, but that doesn't mean just because we're willing to spend that you're reckless. So, we have the support of ownership, and I know that he's patient. So as a coach, that gives me confidence to take the long approach as well.
Frank, two more. A guy like Eric in the tight end position. Are you looking for somebody to kind of fill that prototype of what he did, or are you open to somebody else who has different skills?
We're open. I'm open to different skill set. I obviously love Eric's skill set. He's a dynamic player. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. The tight end's pretty important in our offense. We love the tight ends we have. Jack Doyle's a great player. Mo Alley Cox is on the rise. With those two guys alone, I feel very good about where we're headed. I haven't even dug into. I talked about receivers and quarterbacks. I haven't really dug into the tight ends yet to really spend plenty of time on them. But for us, that's a pretty important position.
Coach, we know
Last one here.
The combine in Indy, but let's stack another one on. Why should the NFL draft move here? I know it's in the works, but why?
Indy's it's a proven commodity. We've been winners with the combine. We've been winners with the Super Bowl, right? So we know how to. Indianapolis knows how to do it. We know how to put together a national event. We know how to do it with class. We got the right leaders in place to do it, and we're undefeated. So bring it on.